Top 10 things you probably don't know about fairies. The genuine pixies were not little, gauzy, pretty, or fun. Indeed, they could be useful, however they could likewise unleash destruction in your home and power you out of it. They were substitutes for pretty much all that which may turn out badly among your family, yields, and animals, similarly as witches or vampires were somewhere else. Also, in 17th century England, pixies were accepted to unnerve individuals to death. In genuine pixie country well into the 20th century, a pixie place was once in a while some distant piece of the unique scene. The pixies were all over and dreaded by all. 10 Frightening fairies you don't want to mess with. 10 The fairies were plunged from the fallen angels. In the late 19th century individuals in Scotland, Wales, Ireland or the Isle of Man would educate you concerning the pixies' noteworthy memorable and biblical family. The proud angel instigated a resistance among the holy messengers of paradise, where he had been the main light. Numerous heavenly messengers followed him, so numerous that finally, the son called out, "Father! Father! The city is being exhausted." Whereupon the father requested that the entryways of paradise and the doors of damnation ought to be shut. This was in a flash done. Also, the individuals who were in, and the individuals who were out, while the hosts who had left paradise and had not ventured hellfire flew into the openings of the earth, similar to the harbingers of trouble. These are the fairy folk, since the time destined to live under the ground, and possibly permitted to arise where and when the king permits. This cause pleasantly fitted the gigantic force of the pixies, who some idea could annihilate the world if they decided. What's more, it likewise fitted their inquisitively in the middle of status. They were neither basically acceptable nor terrible, not exactly of this world or the following, neither human nor creature. Consequently their character, in customary pixie region, as the Middle Kingdom. 9 Fairy sightings. One thing I never expected to be agonizing over when I initially began investigating pixies was the essential inquiry: are pixies genuine? But, as the researcher Simon Young has appeared, there are a stunning number of pixie sightings, from pretty much every country, and each sort of witness. Across the time frame 1900–1901, the hour of the Boer War, a kid of 5 saw each night segments of minuscule troopers walking over his bed, joined by breathtaking military music. At the point when he reviewed this in 1951, he expressed unequivocally that he would commit to its reality, in any official courtroom. This man was Victor Purcell, a history speaker at Cambridge, where he stayed until 1963. In the meantime, in Wales in the 20th century, a solitary angler was surprised to see and hear a little old male figure abruptly show up in the stream with him, chattering enthusiastically, "Catch him, Tommy, I like to eat trouts, Tommy." Answering peevishly and dismissing to play his line out of certain weeds, the angler was astounded to turn around and track down that the pixie man had totally vanished in open country. This straightforward observer was one Commander T.A. Powell, who proceeded to ask, distrustfully, how could he know my name? 8 The Leprechaun Hunt of West Limerick. Not a long way from the pixie slope of Knockfierna, a student named John Keeley has recently rushed the nation over to the place of the Mulqueens and is enthusiastically demanding that he has seen a pixie. The Mulqueens send him back to investigate it. The pixie reacts, from the mountains, and it is all equivalent to you what my business is. Next day 2 pixies showed up at the go-across streets among Ballingarry and Kilfinny, 6 miles from Rathcael, in sunlight, with skipping ropes, and they could jump the stature of a man, as per Robert and John Mulligan and other observers. Before long groups were amassing at the intersection, with individuals coming from everywhere Limerick to see the leprechauns. The individuals who had spotted them affirmed that they were around 2 feet in stature and had hard, bristly faces like men and no ears. They were wearing red, with one brandishing a white cape, and they wore knee breeches and vamps, rather than shoes. This leprechaun chase appears to have happened about the finish of August or the beginning of September. It was 1938. Local people were pursuing the leprechauns because, as Diarmuid O'Jolaine clarifies, these animals have treasure. On the off chance that you could get one, you would save it in a case for a year, and a day before it will uncover the area of its crowd. Any considerations from health and safety are invited here. 7. Fairy music. On the Pixie frequented the Isle of Man, on Dalby Mountain. The old Manx individuals used to put their ears to the earth to hear the sounds of infinity, she and any fiainid. Albeit these mumbles were likely tides on stones, something more secretive may have been happening somewhere else on the island. W. W. Gill portrays a far-off pixie-frequented triangle of slopes and waterway valley, where Manx people would accumulate to hear a ridiculous singing, as of human voices in inaccessible harmony, breathed out strangely on still nights out of a specific steep piece of ground on the contrary bank, called the Granane. Back in England in 1922, the writer and at some point Oxford individual Dr. Thomas Wood was holidaying with companions on Dartmoor when he heard music noticeable all around. It was overhead, weak as a breath. It faded away, returned stronger. It kept going 20 minutes. Convenient remote sets were obscure in 1922. My field glasses guaranteed me not a single picnickers were to be seen. Wood scored this music on the spot and demanded, "I'm set up to say on the vow that what I recorded is so near the first that the actual creators would not have the foggiest idea about the distinction." As of late, the American creator Chris Woodyard played out this pixie music, using a record for electronic organ. Any individual who needs to accomplish another melodic first could likewise mastermind a presentation of Wood's unique score for 2 violins. 6. Fairy poltergeists. Do pixies truly exist? Apparitions unquestionably do, and in the pixie region, a troublesome, savage, or boisterous soul in a house would be viewed as a furious pixie. Even though ghosts are frequently wild and persecutory, in a critical number of cases they have left presents or tackled errands for householders. In this sense, the dualism of the pixies, amazing creatures who can undoubtedly shift from great to awful, fits impeccably. The extraordinary pixie pioneer Catherine Briggs had a companion who as a kid frequently visited the old women of Denton Hall close to Newcastle during the 1890s. The women had, they advised her, A Silky, sparkled by Briggs as the Northumbrian brownie, which from one viewpoint, made it somewhat hard to keep workers yet, on the other, regularly assisted with housework, cleaning meshes and laying fires. She wearing dark silk, and they frequently met her, on the steps. During World War II the companion got back to the hall to track down that the new inhabitants, even though they never saw the Silky, unquestionably heard her. For, the child of the house was so mistreated by grievous bangings in his room that they didn't remain long. I talked a couple of months back to one of the staff at the hall, and she affirmed that it is as yet spooky, though more somewhat, in the current day. 5. Fairy landscapes. In Ireland particularly, the wide open was intensely set apart by the presence of the pixies. Pixie fortresses or slopes were one component, and in 1911 12 councillors at Athlone, Westmeath discovered they essentially couldn't part with a house worked next to the nearby pixie slope. Then, there were pixie trees, normally thistles. These were similarly no-no, and new streets would need to turn around them. A rancher in County Antrim who cut one down when flushed was said to have woken the following morning with his head pivoted in reverse. Generally hazardous of everything was pixie ways. This was because they were typically undetectable. Nation individuals may guiltlessly fabricate another house, just to gain from the neighborhood fairy expert that all or part of their home lay across a way utilized by the pixies in any event once every day. One arrangement was to open up back and front entryways at the delegated hour, so the good people could go through imperceptibly. However, here the pixie ghost additionally introduced uncommon issues. At some point before 1959, a man called Paddy Bain and his young lady of the hour endured such fierce hammerings in their new home that they dreaded a divider would fall. Nearby insightful Lady Mairead Ní Hine was brought in, and clarified that one corner of the house was meddling with the advancement of the great individuals. A stonemason cut off a side of the structure, and harmony was re-established. 4. Changelings. In pixie country, the thought of the changeling youngster was a long way from being simply offbeat fables. Directly through the 19th century, guardians persuaded that their kid had been exchanged by the pixies would subject the changeling to horrifying savageries to make the pixies invert the trade. Children or babies were drenched in harmful foxglove quintessence, left outside in frosty climate, set on sweltering digging tools by the fire, or kept on the beach by the tide's edge. Many were slaughtered. In Ireland, one youngster who caught conversation of his changeling status seems to have kicked the bucket of fear, knowing all around well the ceremonial revulsions which anticipated him. The researcher Susan Schoon Eberly has shown that large numbers of these speculate babies were experiencing unmistakable ailments. The hereditary issue phenylketonuria, PKU, for instance, influences digestion and advancement and isn't quickly clear after birth. Having been conveyed of an apparently ordinary, sound child, guardians in a swarm, the hard-squeezed house would as of now find that their baby looked strangely old and wrinkled, neglected to talk, and was insatiably